The President. Questions. Question 1. Mr. Chen Chun-ying. President. There are views pointing out that the policy statement on development of virtual assets in Hong Kong, the statement for short, issued by the government at the end of October this year, has demonstrated to the global virtual assets VA community the government's vision of developing Hong Kong into an international VA center. According to the statement, the government and regulators are exploring 3 pilot projects, including, among others, the issuance of tokenized green bond, which is conducive to the public's exposure to an understanding of VA, and the government sincerely invites the global VA community to join hands with it to realize the potential of financial innovations together. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. Whether it has drawn up publicity and public education programs to give information through various means on VA, such as its features, regulatory regime, guidelines on fraud prevention, and channels for right protection, so as to enhance the public's awareness of and confidence in the trading of VA, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. 2. Whether it will consider setting up a cross-border virtual financial platform in collaboration with other jurisdictions, so as to promote the development of Hong Kong into an international VA center, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. Whether it will introduce a range of preferential policies for the VA industry to attract VA-related enterprises and investors to Hong Kong, thereby enhancing the competitiveness of Hong Kong, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President. My consolidated reply to Mr. Chan's question is as follows. The government attaches importance to the development of financial technology and virtual assets, VA. The Chief Executive has announced in a policy address that a dedicated office for attracting strategic enterprises will be established this year, and financial technology is one of the key industries of strategic importance. Just in October, we issued the Policy Statement on Development of Virtual Assets in Hong Kong, Policy Statement for short, setting out the vision and policy direction of the government and pragmatically laying out government's support measures for the VA industry. We consider that a comprehensive and balanced regulatory system can protect investors' interests and promote industry development. Under the principle of same business, same risk, same rules, the SFC, Securities and Futures Commission, has since 2018 established a holistic regulatory framework for VA, covering the provision of VA-related services by traditional financial service intermediaries, such as VA fund management and distribution of VA-related products, and transactions conducted by centralized VA exchanges. The SFC and Hong Kong Monetary Authority Hong Kong MA further issued a joint circular earlier this year to provide guidelines for intermediaries intending to engage in VA-related services. To enhance the above regulatory framework, the government introduced to the LegCo in July this year legislative proposals to establish a licensing regime for VA service providers. I'd like to express my gratitude to Mr. Chen for leading the scrutiny of the legislative proposals. Under the proposed licensing regime, licensed exchanges must comply with anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing requirements, as well as regulatory requirements on investor protection, including proper asset custody, ensuring financial soundness, and avoiding conflicts of interest. The licensing regime will help licensees build up reputation for accessing more investors in the Hong Kong market. Apart from statutory protection, we also consider the investor education essential. The Investor and Financial Education Council, IFEC, has set up a dedicated VA portal at its website and has, in the past few years, drawn up financial education materials on various VA subjects, setting out the features and risks of different types of VA. In October this year, the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, in collaboration with the SFC, joined a webinar hosted by the IFEC to explain to the public the risks involved in investing in VA and the importance of regulation. The SFC also reminds investors from time to time of the need to take heed of such risks as price volatility, cyber hacking, and possible frauds and scams when investing in VA. The SFC will step up publicity and promotional efforts upon implementation of the regime. The government has been promoting Hong Kong's edge in financial technology overseas and in the mainland to create more market opportunities. We're exploring the launch of a series of pilot schemes, including a pilot issuance of tokenized green bonds under the government Green Bond Program and a feasibility study on the prospect of issuing retail central bank digital currency in Hong Kong, that is e-Hong Kong D, Hong Kong dollars. On investment, promotion, and complementary measures, the global fast track organized by the Invest Hong Kong provides business development and financing opportunities for financial technology firms worldwide, which includes a VA track to provide dedicated matching opportunities for startups engaging in blockchain technologies and VA businesses. In addition, the Cyberport is also committed to promote financial technology and fostering the development of blockchain technology. Currently, there are about 80 VA or blockchain companies in Cyberport, creating a community of digital innovations. On providing funding support to and nurturing talents, the FinTech Proof of Concept Subsidy Scheme seeks to encourage the industry to proactively develop projects on innovative financial services and products. Under this scheme, 7 VA-related projects were approved. The government also launched in 2020 the FinTech Anti-Epidemic Scheme for Talent Development to provide funding support for local FinTech companies and startups and other related businesses to create new jobs, which covers 48 VA-related companies. As stated in a policy statement, the government hopes and is confident that Hong Kong can develop a prosperous VA industry and ecology. Through the establishment of comprehensive and clear regulatory system and a series of supporting measures mentioned above, we expect more quality VA enterprises to set up businesses here or to seek development opportunities here. In fact, we note that many jurisdictions have implemented a limited regulation of VA, with a focus on the perspective of anti-money laundering or payment. This differs from Hong Kong's comprehensive regulatory approach. With the turbulence in the VA market in recent years, it's referred to as crypto winter in the industry. Regulatory bodies around the globe have started to pay attention to investor protection and financial stability as considered important in Hong Kong's regulatory system. Hong Kong, as a pioneer of implementing a comprehensive system, can increase investors' confidence in regulated VA service providers here. President, Hong Kong is an international financial center with an excellent financial infrastructure, legislation, and regulatory system. We'll continue to seize opportunities and promote the development of international VA industry under a sound regulatory system. Thank you. Mr. Chen. President, in the main reply, it says that Hong Kong is a pioneer. By implementing a comprehensive system, it can increase investors' confidence. We support the administration to first put in place a good regulatory regime before they consider any development. Recently, an exchange of VA FTX has applied for bankruptcy protection. In different realms, there are different ways of protection. Say, banking industry, the deposit protection scheme. For the travel industry, there are also similar protection schemes. Would you consider imposing a levy to set up a protection fund to protect investors when platforms go into financial difficulties? Secretary, President, under the current system, there is already a protection system put in place. For licensed VA exchanges, they have to make use of the wholly owned subsidiary by way of a trust to properly segregate the assets. If the licensed VA exchange goes into financial difficulties, well, as the asset of the exchanges and client assets are separated, so that would not be affected. The regulatory system we have in mind is that licensed VA exchanges will have to make sure that the insurance policy taken out will be valid all the time. In cases of default and other scenarios, then applications may be applied for settlements and compensations to be made. So under the current regulatory regime, there are similar requirements to achieve the same effect. Mr. Chen Kinpo. We can see from recent incidents that the regulatory regime is very fragile. There's no protection for investors whatsoever. We are a pioneer, so I'd like to ask, when it comes to the regulation of virtual assets, the biggest difficulty is to catch up in terms of technology, the technology used in platform operators. So how prepared are you, and what are these preparations? Secretary, Mr. Chen has rightly pointed out that in the development of virtual assets, it is something that is developed outside our conventional system. So whilst making a connection, we have to make sure that the interface is sound. So if there are similar risks, there will be similar regulation. From the perspective of financial stability and investor protection, we will put in place requirements. What Mr. Chen is concerned about is that when it comes to regulators or policymakers, we need to make sure that our knowledge is up to date to keep up with development of technology and relevant knowledge. We closely communicate with the trade. Ourselves and the SFC have dedicated teams to regularly talk to the trade to get a most updated understanding. Because we're not just competing with others, we're competing with the future as well. This arena changes all the time, and there are many different evolving scenarios. It's because of this reason that we have a regulatory regime for VA exchanges. Mr. Edmund Wong, thank you. In the past 2 or 3 years, when it comes to regulation of virtual assets and currencies, this is not very clear. That's why there are concerns. Other places like Singapore are actively developing their services in relation to financial products. They have launched preferential measures to attract our enterprises and talents to these places, say, for example, Singapore and Dubai. Just now, the Secretary talks about a bill on regulation on virtual assets. The regulation from other places are more relaxed, so less protection for investors. If we impose too much limitations to stifle the development of the industry, how can we attract enterprises to develop virtual assets here? So without these enterprises, there is no need to talk about investor protection because there is no such business. Before I reply to the member's question, let me tell you about what's going on. People talk about exodus of enterprises and talent. Well, actually, the situation is not as bad as painted. We have about 805 fintech companies, including unicorns. As at October this year, blockchain technology or VA companies stands at over 130. After we have announced the policy statement, there is a strong response from the industry. After we have announced this statement on the 31st of October, there was close to 200,000 people participating in a platform discussing about the policy statement. To reply to the member's question, how can we on one hand offer protection without excessively limiting the development of the industry? It's very difficult to strike a balance, but we endeavor to do so. Regarding investor protection, including investor education, we will try to do our best. For licensed VA service providers, we require that they have sufficient expertise and financial backing. There should be risk management mechanisms in place and arrangements for financial reporting, auditing, as well as disclosure. And there are also requirements on conflict of interests. In terms of development, for the SFC or or Invest Hong Kong, as well as the government itself, interested parties have made contact to understand. We talk to them to understand what they need, because we have a mature financial market and we have a pool of 130 VA-related businesses here. The SFC has approved 2 brokerage companies to conduct transactions on VA asset on VA. There are 8 fund managers that are allowed to manage VA. The SFC actually before that has licensed 2 VA exchanges, so we have a sound foundation. What we want to do is do better, do more to ensure stable development of the industry. We are confident that we'll be able to strike a good balance. Mr. Dominic Lee, I'll be the devil's advocate. The existence of virtual currency or cryptocurrency is because people want to dodge regulation. Otherwise, they would not want to develop it. The approach of the government is to have regulation before development. Singapore has devoted sufficient resources to develop this. However, because of the regulation, enterprises are deterred. Someone criticized Singapore for excessive regulation, and they want to separate cryptocurrency from blockchain. But our industry is yet to develop. Why do you impose regulations? And our regulatory regime comprises many more requirements than other jurisdictions. Secretary, the question shows that regulation cannot be detached from market development. The member mentions about regulation. Well, we are now in the midst of crypto winter. Sustainable, responsible regulation is in demand. For something to develop, it takes time. So we need a sound, sustainable, responsible, holistic regulatory regime, including investor protection, is required from the perspective of market development and investor protection. So the regulatory regime for virtual or for VA exchanges involves financial stability and investor protection compared to requirements in other jurisdictions focusing on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. We already have participants that have set up their bases in Hong Kong. So whether it is the policy statement or the regulatory regime, these businesses have responded actively and positively. So we will, via different government organizations, including regulators, as well as Invest Hong Kong, to promote the use of this regulatory regime to ensure healthy development. Mr. Chen Pui Leung, thank you. The government and regulators will launch 3 pilot schemes, and that is the tokenized green bond and NFT, as well as another. You work with the monetary authority. I would like to ask, in the end, which policy bureau will be in charge of this, and what is the expected expenditure? In relation to the 3 pilot schemes mentioned in the policy statement, that is a tokenized green bond, NFT, as well as e-Hong Kong dollars, they have been launched. At the end of October and the beginning of November, in the FinTech Week, they were launched. So it's under our purview. The expected expenditure is included in the budget of FinTech Week. Our idea is that after collecting views collected in FinTech Week, we have over a million participants. We will make use of the views collected to gauge the response of participants, enterprises, and individuals. There is a significance regarding the tokenized, in relation to NFTs. Participants, upon obtaining the NFT, will enjoy a discount when they join FinTech next year. And in the coming period, there will be a series of activities organized by Invest Hong Kong. There are fast-track programs to help enterprises to enter into the mainland market. We will make use of the token holder network to do so. So it kills two birds. There is actual significance. We liaise and put together the industry participated in the FinTech Week and involved them in the development of the industry.
Second question, Mr. Tommy Zhang. According to the Education Ordinance, the registration of teachers is valid on a lifetime basis under the existing mechanism. Once a teacher is registered successfully, his or her registration is valid for life without any requirement to regularly pass examinations or pursue further studies. There are views that being the authority for registration of teachers, the Education Bureau has the responsibility to monitor the quality and conduct of teachers. In this connection, will the government inform this council whether it will review the existing mechanism for registration of teachers and switch to requiring teachers who are registered to regularly pass examinations and pursue further studies, the contents of which should include the understanding of the nation and national affairs, in order to be eligible for renewal of the registration, so as to increase the incentives for teachers to make improvement, ensure the overall quality of education, and lay a solid foundation for the effective implementation of patriotism education. If so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. Secretary for Education. President, teachers are the foundation and key of education. They are responsible for fostering positive values and a sense of national identity in students and should therefore possess professional capabilities and uphold professional conduct. The Education Bureau is responsible for statutory registration of teachers and monitoring their professional qualifications and conduct. We have been actively handling matters relating to the quality of teachers by, among other things, playing a gatekeeping role on various fronts, including appointment, management, and training, so as to safeguard the well-being of students. On reply to Mr. Tommy Cheung's question is as follows. Applicants for teacher registration should have the professional qualifications as specified in the Education Ordinance. At the same time, the EDB will critically review applicants' records, including records of criminal conviction, and whether the applicant's registration as a school manager or a teacher have been refused or cancelled, so as to assess whether the applicants are fit and proper persons to be teachers and decide to approve or refuse to register them as teachers. Registered teachers are required to go through a stringent selection process of schools and meet the requirements of the ADB prior to their appointment. In July 2021, the ADB updated relevant guidelines for appointment of staff in schools, requiring schools to strengthen the management of staff. Prior to appointment of teachers, schools should inquire the potential appointees' registration status through the EDB. The EDB will inform schools of whether their registration or application has been cancelled or refused, and whether reprimand, warning, advisory letters have been issued in connection with the teachers' registration. Besides, starting from the 2022-23 school year, the EDB requires newly appointed teachers in public sector schools to pass the basic law test in order to be considered for appointment. Starting from the 2023-24 school year, the test requirement will be extended to cover all direct subsidy scheme schools and kindergartens joining the kindergarten education scheme. The test will cover the basic law and the national security law. The above measures ensure the quality of teachers appointed so as to safeguard the well-being of students and strengthen their ability to develop students' correct understanding of the basic law and the national security law. In respect of in-service teachers, an effective mechanism is in place to handle cases related to teachers' misconduct and violation of the law. The EDB will consider the gravity of each case and take action against the teacher concerned, including cancellation of teacher registration, issuing a reprimand, warning, or advisory letter. Starting from the 2021-22 school year, the EDB conducts comprehensive criminal record check on all registered teachers every 3 years. If teachers are involved in illegal acts and willful omissions in reporting, we will consider cancelling their registrations to safeguard students' well-being. The EDB has been attaching importance to in-service professional training of teachers. All teachers, regardless of rank and position, are required to undertake no less than 150 hours of continuing professional development or CPD activities by the end of each 3-year cycle. The EDB and teacher education institutions have been actively providing a variety of professional development programs and activities for teachers, such as integrated education, support to non-Chinese speaking students to learn Chinese, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, or STEAM education, etc. The programs were well received by teachers. Besides the regular professional development activities such as the 3 staff development days of each school year, functional subject-based training, sister school scheme, or sharing activities organized by schools, sponsoring bodies, etc., also provide teachers with ample opportunities to participate in training and enhance their professionalism. Starting from the 2020-21 school year, the EDB has set more specific training requirements. Amongst others, newly joined teachers and teachers aspiring for promotion are required to take 30 hours of core training, with particular emphasis on teachers' professional conduct and including contents pertaining to the Constitution, the Basic Law, and National Security Law in the core training. Newly joined and serving teachers are required to enroll in the training programs within 3 years, while teachers aspiring for promotion are required to complete the training within 5 years before promotion. The EDB has also requested teacher education universities to strengthen the contents of teacher professional conduct and cover the Constitution, Basic Law, the National Security education in the pre-service training for teachers. In addition, newly joined teachers in publicly funded schools and teachers aspiring for promotion in public sector schools will also be required to participate in the mainland study tours. Serving teachers will also be offered more mainland study opportunities to experience the development of a country and strengthen their abilities to help students foster a sense of belonging towards the country. The EDB will monitor teachers' progress in achieving related targets through an electronic system. If individual teachers fail to fulfill the training requirements as set out by the EDP, follow-up measures will be taken to ensure that they meet the relevant requirements. Meanwhile, to further enhance the standard and requirement for pre-service teacher training, we are collaborating with teacher universities to prepare a guiding framework of primary and secondary school teacher education programs, which is targeted to be implemented in the 2023-24 school year. Regarding the proposal of requiring teachers to take examinations training regularly in order to be eligible for renewal of the registration, we keep an open mind on the matter for the time being. Teacher registration mechanism can serve a gatekeeping function for the quality of teachers, but the daily observation, supervision, and guidance of schools are equally important. As employers, schools have the responsibility and establish mechanisms to monitor the performance of teachers. Should the school find its teachers incompetent, it can deal with the matter in accordance with the employment ordinance and the codes of aid to safeguard the well-being of students. Should the school's monitoring mechanisms fail to serve a gatekeeping function, we will review and enhance the existing system in light of the actual circumstances. In determining whether the registration system should be changed, we must carefully consider the feasibility and effectiveness of the proposal, including how to determine the contents and assessment methods of the examinations and training, and whether they are effective in demonstrating the professional conduct of teachers. The EDB will continue to review the contents of teacher training and the alignment of the implementation strategies with other education policies while considering enhancement measures. In addition, the EDP will promulgate guidelines on teachers' professional conduct within this year to clearly set out the professional conduct and behavior required of teachers. By making reference to the principles set out in the guidelines, teachers can strive to enhance their professionalism and high-quality teaching force can be maintained. Thank you, President. Mr. Tommy Chung. Thank you, President. The answer given by the Secretary has been very detailed. It sets out the policy of the Education Bureau. But I'd like to remind the Bureau Director that around the world, teachers do not enjoy this lifelong registration. And we also do not have a similar registration system for life for other teachers. So she said that the code or the guideline will be completed shortly. But then we have been against that, because if you look at the entire system, well, the professional image of teachers has gone down the drain. So if you look at what happened in the past, I'm glad to hear that the Secretary said that she'd be reviewing the requirements. But then for lifelong registration, you said that you can fire them or dismiss them. But then what I'm saying is that they should be more professional so that people can see that their professional image is good, and registration should not be for life. So, Bureau Director, please deal with that expeditiously. I don't think lifelong registration is proper. You should change it. Thank you. Bureau Director. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your comments. In fact, for the professional quality of our teachers, there are many ways to do the gatekeeping. For example, we have the Code of Eight, and also the Employment Ordinance, the Education Ordinance, and also the administrative guidelines, and so on. So we have already required them to undergo 150 hours of CPD training. But then, as the honourable member said, as to how we can further safeguard the professional image of our teachers and also do our gatekeeping role, well, for new recruits and also teachers aspiring for promotion, and if there are complaints against the professional conduct of teachers, we have established mechanisms in order to help the public build confidence in teachers and also help boost the professional image of teachers. And for the registration system, once every 3 years, we are reviewing the situation. We have an open mind on that. But then, as I just said, it would depend on the feasibility and also effectiveness of that. Thank you. Yes, Professor Lau Chi-Pang. Thank you, President. Concerning lifelong registration for teachers, I don't think we need to require teachers to undergo assessment at different stages. On the contrary, I think we need to require teachers to enhance their professional conduct and professionalism on regular basis. Because for universities, we have this tenure and non-tenure based employment. But then from being a non-tenure teaching staff to becoming a tenure staff, they would also have to undergo very stringent assessment and so on. And therefore, for primary and secondary school teachers, I think the mechanism, when compared to universities, they are already having a much easier time, and it's easier for them to get lifelong registration or employment. I think that's something that we need to look into. Thank you, President. On how to ensure that teachers will continuously enhance their professionalism, well, that's something that we attach a lot of importance to, and therefore through various measures and methods, including what I just set out, we have guidelines and professional training. So other than setting the soft targets and also providing the professional development framework for teachers, there is also a requirement on core training for teachers. We would also focus on their professionalism and also their understanding of the Constitution, the Basic Law, and also the National Security Law. So we are also doing gatekeeping in those regards. And mention was also made about the lifelong registration for teachers. Yes, it would be valid for life. And yet it doesn't mean that they can be employed for life as teachers, because at the point of new appointment, if there is any misconduct or any criminal record, they would also be subject to a lot of challenges. Thank you. Dr. Priscilla Leung, well, life affects life, and we expect that education will be able to nurture future pillars of a society who have good virtues. And whether it's teachers or students, well, we do have very clear KPIs and at the primary school level. Well, in Singapore, they hope that students can love Singapore, and by the time that when they reach high school, they would have to trust Singapore, and also they would also have to aspire to protect Singapore. And then by the time when they reach universities, they would also have to do much more. And the Secretary points out that we would have employment ordinance, codes of age, and so on and so forth go by. But then what we are expecting is that teachers should go even further, because in the end they're going to influence students. And I'm giving you an example. For example, if some teachers are using social media, and you can see that they are very resistant to national education and one country, two systems. But then by the time when they go to school, they would keep silent. They would not say anything about it. So we think that they are not fit and proper persons to become teachers, because they have been expressing such views in social media and other occasions. Secretary, well, on the question about teachers expressing their views in social media and also on other platforms other than attending classes, which might be contrary to their professionalism and also the values that they are supposed to instill in their students. Well, we have always emphasized that they should set a good example to students, and the public does have a very high expectation on teachers. And therefore, if they do things in contrary to what they're supposed to do, then they are not setting a good example, and that would also be a bad influence to students. And therefore, when they have to teach the students, and when they are supposed to give them good values or instill in them good values, and when they are not doing that, then we would find that problematic, and therefore we would take that very seriously. And in fact, in terms of the KPI set out by the EDB, we are very clear. We hope that students would be very committed. They would also have a sense of belonging to our country, and they would have a global outlook, and so on and so forth. And therefore, this is something that we would be working together with the school sector as well as the teachers to achieve. Yes, Mr. Chu Pokham. Which part of the question has not been answered? You can ask the questions on other occasions. Yes, Mr. Chu? Thank you, President. I have to declare interest. I'm a registered teacher in the subvented school sector, and to many of us, we know that Hong Kong has been working very hard, and many teachers have to undergo CPD training, and through national education, we have been teaching our students to love our country and love Hong Kong. So for the frontline teachers, they've been working so hard, and yet there are people who simply do not understand, or they might even think that monitoring and regular re-examination would enhance the quality of education. So I'd like to ask if the administration has clear strategies to make sure that the community would understand that teachers have been working very hard, and they should restore their confidence in teachers, and there should not be unnecessary worries about teachers being not professional. Secretary. Well, Mr. Chu said that we will have to rebuild the community's confidence in teachers. As I said earlier, in terms of personal professional conduct, there should also be continuous education to enhance their professionalism, and also their conduct would also be very important. And we have also attached importance to publicizing the importance of respecting teachers and education, because if students do not respect their teachers, then we will not make education a success. And therefore, other than the code of age and also the guidelines and so on, every year we would also organize this Respect Teachers Day, and also the reward by the CE on outstanding and brilliant teachers and so on. Those are awards and rewards to incentivize teachers who are doing a good job. So we hope that through different measures, we can encourage teachers to become more professional. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Leung or Mr. Tang Fei, and if teachers have had their registration cancelled, is there any mechanism for them to apply for re-registration, in particular for teachers who have been deregistered for two reasons? One is with criminal record, and those who have been disqualified simply because of their misconduct, but not because of criminal records. Secretary, well, if a teacher is disqualified, or has had his registration cancelled, then obviously he must have committed serious misconduct before he would be disqualified. And we can see that there might have been a professional misconduct or inappropriate behavior, or if a teacher has committed serious professional misconduct or committed serious criminal offenses, then in order to safeguard the well-being of students and also in response to parents' concerns, we believe that for certain serious circumstances, then it might warrant that the teachers should be cancelled for life, and there is no chance that he can get re-registered. But then if it's not serious, for example, in terms of his professional competency, if he's serious and if he's sincere in turning over a new leaf, and if he's found to be, once again, a fit and proper person to be a teacher, then basically, well, he would be suspended. So after the deregistration, after 3 years, and if the teacher works very hard during the 3-year period to remedy the situation and improve his conduct, then there is a chance that he can apply for re-registration. But then I would also have to say that if there are no justifications to warrant re-registration, then his application will continue to be rejected. Mr. Stanley Lee, I'd like to declare that I'm also a registered teacher. All right, you said that teachers are the foundation and key of education. You also said that in the next school year, 2023-24, school training or teacher education universities would also draw up the framework for education. But then there are two types of teachers. One would be, prospective teachers or permitted teachers. One would be, the other would be certified teachers. But then in 2016, in June, when you designed the form, that was the case. And for primary schools, right now, only university undergrads or bachelor degree holders would be eligible to become teachers. So with regard to permitted teachers, would you, is it appropriate for you to adjust the requirements in order to meet the aspiration of the society? Thank you. Well, just now, Mr. Leung also referred to permitted teachers and certified teachers. The distinction between the two is that for permitted teachers, in terms of the education requirements, they are eligible for application and therefore they can become a registered teacher. But then for permitted teachers, the registration would mean that they have not completed all the educational requirements for a registered teacher, and therefore when he fills the form, then in light of the latest developments, we also have to make adjustments to the content of the forms.
Question number 3, Mr. Ma Fengguo. President, in December 2020, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the Office of the Leading Group for the Development of Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, and the People's Government of Guangdong Province jointly promulgated the Culture and Tourism Development Plan for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, or the Culture and Tourism Plan, with a view to jointly developing a Culture Bay Area. And the Newton SAR government has established the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, CSTB, on promoting the integrated development of culture, sports and tourism. With the government inform this council? 1. Given that the Culture and Tourism Plan has put forward a number of projects related to the development of culture and tourism, such as projects on the preservation and transmission of cultural heritage in the Greater Bay Area, the platform on coordinated cultural development for GBA, the tourism project with characteristics of GBA, such as Tile Fishing Village in Hong Kong, or the specific plans the authorities have put in place to follow up the projects put forward in the Cultural and Tourism Plan. 2. Of the measures the authorities have put in place to take on board the views of stakeholders of the cultural, sports and tourism sectors, so as to promote the integrated development of culture, sports and tourism. Whether the authorities will consider setting up a commission on strategic development for culture, sports and tourism to establish a platform for direct communication and cooperation with the three sectors in respect of specific work and policies. And 3, whether the authorities will, in accordance with the content of the Culture and Tourism Plan, as well as in the light of the establishment of CSTB and the latest development of tourism industry, update the development blueprint for Hong Kong's tourism industry formulated in 2017 so as to achieve the greatest synergy among culture, sports and tourism. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. President, culture, sports and tourism can complement and reinforce one another's development. Tourism requires exciting and diverse content to entice visitors, while culture and sports can exactly offer the very content required for visitors' appreciation and experience. At the same time, as visitors take part in and have a taste of Hong Kong's culture, which is rooted in the Chinese culture, and our major sports event will be able to showcase to the world different aspects of Hong Kong, tell good stories about Hong Kong on the one hand and expand Hong Kong's audience for culture and sport event on the other hand, thereby creating additional room for the development of culture and sports in Hong Kong and fostering their development as industries. The Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, CSTB, I'm leading, will vigorously foster the integration among culture, sports and tourism so as to drive the development of these three aspects more effectively. My reply to the three parts of the question is as follows. 1. The Cultural Tourism Development Plan for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area, the plan, sets out the guiding direction for the overall cultural and tourism development of GBA and guides the development of GBA into an exchange hub for the culture of the East and the West, and a world-class tourism destination. Since the promulgation of the plan, the government of Hong Kong SAR has been actively taking forward multiple initiatives of different types based on the guiding directions of the plan. The LCSD arranged for arts groups and traditional craftsmen of Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau to participate in performances or production artworks in Hong Kong every year. The government of the three places co-present a showcase of Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau Cantonese opera master and new stars every 2 years to enhance the cultural exchanges while promoting tourism. In addition, LCSD has been supporting Hong Kong art groups and artists to undertake cultural exchange in GBA and has supported 45 local productions of different genres to stage a total of 127 performances in 7 cities of GBA since 2018. LCSD has also established its network and communication mechanism with major performance venues in GBA. Besides, Create Hong Kong has supported a number of activities to promote the development of creative industry in GBA, which include participating in the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau biennial meeting to discuss the development of film industries 2021, inviting cities of GBA to participate in the Business of Design Week, sponsoring PMQ in organizing the renewed creativity roving exhibition in Shenzhen, etc. At the same time, Hong Kong makes effort in establishing synergized cultural development platforms in GBA, including the hosting of Hong Kong 2022 International Society for the Performing Arts Congress online in May this year, with the participation of some 400 leaders and professionals in the arts and cultural field from over 30 regions. The government also plans to organize the first ever Hong Kong Performing Arts Market in 2024, which will serve as a platform for showcasing the works of top-notch performing artists and arts groups from Hong Kong, the mainland and overseas, under the guiding direction of developing more tourism products and itineraries with unique characteristics. As set out in the plan, we have been enhancing Hong Kong tourism resources and supporting facilities based on the principle of shaping tourism with cultural activities and promoting culture through tourism. We rolled out in recent years various cultural heritage, creative and green tourism projects with unique characteristics, including the Yim Chin Tai Arts Festival Design District Hong Kong City in Time, and enhancement of hiking trails, etc. And we're working at full steam to deliver new phases of these projects. The Hong Kong Tourism Board has also publicizing the tourism experience of arts and culture offered by Hong Kong to its ongoing Arts in Hong Kong promotional campaign. Further, we have been enhancing upgrading our two major tourism attractions, such as our Western Kowloon district. Based on the guiding principle of the plan, CSTB will continue to proactively pursue integration into the national development and work hand in hand with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, as well as the culture and tourism authorities in GBA, to develop a world-class Bay Area for culture and leisure. 2. The government has been capitalizing on the cultural and sports resources of Hong Kong to promote tourism and establish CSTB with the aim of enhancing the synergy among the three aspects by enabling the teams responsible for culture, sports and tourism matters within the government to close liaison with one another, set common goals and bring forth organic collaboration. In addition, maintain a regular communication of individual stakeholders in the cultural, sports and tourism sectors with government through various advisory statutory bodies such as the Sports Commission, the Tourism Strategy Group, Advisory Committee on Arts Development, and Hong Kong TV, etc., has been liaising closely with sector, engaging their views in relevant policy areas. The policy address this year also announced the establishment of a Cultural Commission to assist the government in mapping our blueprint so as to enhance the ecosystem for the industries. We'll continue to make good use of those platforms to discuss cross-sectorial issues to the sectors so as to foster their exchange and collaboration and thereby create more synergy among the sectors. Those channels have enabled CSTV to have a better picture of the overall state, views and needs and individual sectors as well as the free sector as a whole and adopt more forward-looking approach. Moreover, in appointing members to advisory statutory bodies of the three sectors, we continue to consider appointing cross-sectorial and interdisciplinary candidates and inviting the same person to serve on the advisory or statutory bodies of different sectors simultaneously so as to foster the integration among the sectors and a synergistic development. 3. The government promulgated in 2017 the development blueprint for Hong Kong tourism industry, setting out the vision of developing Hong Kong into a world-class premier tourism destination, as well as 4 development strategies, which include, among other things, nurturing and developing tourism products and initiatives with local and international characteristics. Implementation goals under the strategy include facilitating development of local, historical and heritage culture and creative tourism, as well as supporting the staging of events and activities of different scale and nature in Hong Kong. The strategy well echoes with the plan, guiding direction and developing more tourism products and itineraries with characteristics and its initiative of developing cultural and heritage tourism as well as international sports events tourism. It is evident that the blueprint and the plan share the same vision and the implementation goals as set out in the blueprint. The government will continue to enhance existing measures and initiatives, timely roll out new ones, and thoroughly implement the plans and the principle of shaping tourism through cultural activities and promoting culture through tourism, so as to unleash Hong Kong's role as an international tourism hub and a core demonstration zone for multi-destination tourism. Well, at present, we have different meetings for cultural exchanges, and SF and OC will organize sports events, and you have a GBA meeting serving as a platform for cultural and tourism. But for the other arts and cultural projects, such as Chinese medicine, and the relevant departments would have to liaise with their counterparts separately. Would the administration reconsider this arrangement? Do you think this is a bit fragmented so that the relevant arts, culture, and sports organizations can join hands in promoting development? In the mainland, in the GBA cities, very often within the government structure, culture, and tourism will fall under the same branch of government. It may be in the form of a department of culture and tourism. And that this term of SAR government has also set up the CSTB, Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau. Therefore, in liaising with other GBA cities, will be able to be more focused and adopt a target-oriented approach. We can develop different products on culture and tourism, and this can be done more efficiently. Recently, because of the pandemic, there have been fewer face-to-face exchange or group meetings to consider synergy, which is one of the objectives under the GBA plan, so that we can complement each other's strength. We hope that in the future, since we have a bureau that will take care of culture and tourism, our communication in the future will be more effective. Mr. Stanley, Mr. Professor Lau Chi-Pang, Well, this particular subject raises a basic question. How do we integrate with the GBA in terms of culture and tourism? Well, we share the same heritage, we use similar languages, and we share similar education background. The Secretary as refers to activities, exchanges, and platforms. Would there be a further step for the public to better understand how Hong Kong, in terms of culture, tourism, and sports, collaborate with cities such as Dongguan and the 9 cities in the cities? And tourism is an activity that all people would participate. We relied on the tourism practitioners to promote tourism in the GBA. Would there be any plan for the government to enable a better public understanding of how we can better integrate with GBA in the promotion of culture, tourism, and sport, such as through some television programs? Secretary, I mentioned some of the activities that we have carried out. So we want to do something to promote exchange between Hong Kong, Macau, and other GBA cities. And for the GBA as a whole, we're not just looking at culture, tourism, and sport, but also in innovation and technology development. And we would certainly try to find ways to complement each other in promoting growth. As for how we can facilitate a better understanding of Hong Kong people with regard to the way of life in other GBA cities and special characteristics of other GBA cities, of course, that this can be done through our day-to-day work. We can bring our students to visit the GBA and also different professional bodies in their professional development program can also consider how we can better cooperate with GBA cities. All these activities can facilitate a better understanding of Hong Kong people with regard to GBA's strength and unique and advantages, so that we can promote common goals. In the Culture and Tourism Development Plan for the GBA, one of the ideas in the plan is to promote a culture Bay Area, and we would carry out different projects to promote this. Mr. Stanley Ng, we need a cultural infrastructure. In line with our status as a SAR, we should get rid of the colonial heritage. We should systematically regulate and organize our heritage so that we can pass on to the next generation. The Culture and Tourism Development Plan for the GBA is an important document. It offers an opportunity for Hong Kong to once again re-establish our unique culture. And the fostering of the relationship of our culture in Hong Kong with that of the motherland. So I would like to know whether the Bureau has got any plan to collate and organize our cultural heritage resources so as to promote our local heritage and culture based on South China, Chinese characteristics. In the Culture and Tourism Development Plan for the GBA, it's stated that we should steadfastly uphold our special characteristics as part of the Chinese culture, and also to foster a better understanding of Chinese culture, and to also to establish the SA at the GBA as a cultural Bay Area, which that's the direction to go for our work. The actual initiatives would be those organized in accordance with this this conceptual framework. Whether we're talking about museums, including our Museum of History, Museum of Art, as well as the performances of our performance groups. For example, those dancers, opera with South China characteristics. These are part of our cultural heritage, and how can we showcase them to tie in with the cultural and tourism development in the GPA is something that we would consider in planning our work. Dr. Junius Ho. Thank you, President. In part 3 of the reply, the Secretary says that support will be given to different activities that such as sports events to be hosted in Hong Kong. So I would like to know what's your position about the gay pride activities. They secure approval to host the event on the 3rd of November 2021. So is it that the Bureau is supportive and the approval was granted as suggested? Well, we did not provide any financial support to the gay pride sports event. Just like any other NGO, if an NGO wants to organize a sports event, and if it's properly organized, and the CSTP is not asked to provide anything substantive, and those who are interested in the event can then participate. Mrs. Regina Yip, I'm glad to learn from the Secretary that he is in favor of the joint promotion of culture, tourism and sport in Hong Kong. Well, we have a golf course with a history of more than 100 years, which is used to host international competition, attracting thousands of visitors. And there are ancient burial grounds there with ancient old trees. Would you be in favor of preserving this? Well, you know, many people, many visitors who are themselves middle-class people like to visit Hong Kong to use our hiking trails and to use the golf course. The golf course is one of the sports that we enjoy in Hong Kong. Of course, we continue to support this, and through different policies, we would continue to promote the sport of golf. And we have actually produced a very outstanding sportsman. As for different venues, well, we have followed suitable approaches. We'd like to have more people having access to different sports venues. This is the Sports for All policy. As for a particular golf course and how it should be developed, then we have to look at the overall land planning of the government.
Question 4.
The Honourable Policy. President, some members of the public have reflected to me that the central government has all along stressed the need to better safeguard people's sense of gain and well-being. And the SAR government has also mentioned in the latest policy address that endeavors to better serve our people. However, while Hong Kong has over the past year fallen into an economic recession with many industries languishing, countless cases of unemployment, business closures, as well as negative equity cases increased by many folds, the policy address has precious little measures to support the middle and sandwich classes. During the time when the government was conducting consultation on the policy address, I proposed that chief executive should have the foresight of an imminent economic recession and implement as early as possible relief measures such as tax rebates, withdrawal of house measures, and stamp duty reduction, as well as suspension of making MPF contributions and payments of MPF contributions on behalf of some employees so as to practically achieve the policy objectives emphasized by the central government. In this government, will the government inform this council whether it has assessed if there have been signs of deterioration in the stock market, property market, and bond market, as well as the drop in the government's fiscal reserves and foreign exchange reserves since the beginning of this year? And if it has, of the details. 2, whether it will, as early as possible, instruct the financial secretary to examine afresh the foresight relief measures proposed so as to enable people to have a sense of gain and well-being during the economic recession. And 3, whether it will consider putting in place indicators whereby the government will immediately implement the aforesaid relief proposals once the numbers of negative equity cases, volume of property transactions, amount of loss in MPF investment, fiscal reserves, and foreign exchange reserves reach a certain alarming level. Thank you. The Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. I thank Mr. Paul for his question. His question cover a wide range of measures, and we have a number of secretaries present. Now, we have been hard hit because of the fifth wave of the epidemic. The economy improved slightly in the second quarter as the epidemic stabilized. However, while experts have been hit as the external environment worsens, internal investment has also been affected because of tightened financial conditions. Heightened geopolitical tensions have continued to disrupt the global supply chain, and the changing epidemic situation adds to downside risks. Taking into account the economic performance in the first 3 quarters of the year and a challenging short-term outlook, the government has lowered the economic growth forecast for the year as a whole to negative 3.2%, with a forecast underlying inflation rate of 1.8%. The labor market has been gradually improving as the local epidemic situation stabilizes. The seasonally adjusted unemployment rate fell from a high of 5.4% between February and April to 3.9% in the third quarter of the year. Residential property transactions have declined markedly in recent months. The average monthly transactions of residential property fell to around 3,700 between July and October, down from 4,200 in the first half of the year. For the mortgage market, the number of negative equity cases rose recently amid an adjustment in property prices. The number of residential mortgage loans in negative equity increased from 55 in the second quarter to 533 in the third quarter of the year. That said, compared with the peak of 105,700 during the SARS period in 2003 or the high of 11,000 during the global financial crisis in 2008, this is still on the low side. With the delinquency ratio of banks' overall mortgage loan portfolio remaining at a close to zero level for a long period of time, therefore the risk involved in bank mortgage business is still currently at a controllable level. As for the financial sector, financial markets around the globe have been volatile since the break of 2022. As an international financial center, our stock market is equally susceptible to external factors. The investment environment in the third quarter continued to be dominated by factors such as surge in inflation, contractionary monetary policies by central banks, geopolitical conflicts, the energy crisis, and worries of economic recessions, etc. These factors have made our financial market more volatile. Global stock markets plummeted in the third quarter. The Hang Seng Index plunged by 21.2%, and the market capitalization of our stock market shrank by 21.1% to 30.8 trillion in the same quarter. On bond markets, sovereign bond yields in major markets continued to surge. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield rose to 3.8% in the third quarter, the highest since 2010. Our foreign currency reserve assets dropped from $496.9 billion at end 2021 to $419.2 billion at end September 2022. Owing to the sluggish economy, government revenue would fall short of expectations while expenditure would rise. Under such circumstances, the fiscal position for 2022-23 financial year will be worse than anticipated. We're expecting a deficit over $100 trillion, far above the estimated amount of $56.3 billion in the budget earlier this year. Having said so, our fiscal reserves is still at an adequate level. On MPF, despite the recent volatilities in the investment market, as a whole, the MPF system recorded positive returns for 14 out of 21 years, and those years with negative returns were often followed by a rebound. As the MPF system is for long-term investment of savings, scheme members need not be overly concerned about the short-term financial market volatilities. Notwithstanding the various short-term challenges we face, we believe that in the medium to long-term, opportunities still outnumber challenges. Under one country, two systems, Hong Kong enjoys the unique advantage of strong support from the motherland and close connection to the world. We have to make the most of these opportunities and fully leverage our potential so that we can play the role of a super connector better. We have recently relaxed testing and quarantine arrangements for inbound tourists and restrictions on inbound tour group travelers. All these have positive impact on our economy. An improved labor market and the consumption voucher scheme will continue to support consumption in the short term. So long as the epidemic remains under control, economic activities will have further room for recovery. To maintain healthy and stable development of a private domestic property market is one of the important goals of our housing policies. Having considered a basket of factors, including speed and range of changes in property prices, the transaction volume, future supply, the economic situation, outlook, and market sentiments, we do not consider it necessary to adjust the demand-side management measures. We will continue to make reference to relevant indicators and take timely and appropriate measures in response to market changes. When it comes to public finance management, the government adheres to the principles of fiscal prudence and spending as and when justified. To address the downside pressure on our economy brought by the epidemic and the external environment, we'll continue to adopt expansionary fiscal policies using counter-cyclical measures. Will continue to closely monitor changes in circumstances, make dynamic evaluations, duly conduct market management, and exercise prudence in fiscal management. At the same time, we have to consider how to make use of our fiscal reserves to support the economy and relieve people's burden in difficult times in preparation for a robust rebound. We will continue to review our revenue, expenditure, and fiscal reserves levels and in formulating corresponding measures and financial arrangements with the imminent and long-term needs of society in mind. And clearly explain this year's policy address that the government will take on practical measures with active planning, proactive attitude, and vigorously drive Hong Kong towards better development, thereby providing greater impetus for our country's development. Consultation on the budget will start very soon, and the finance secretary will take into account members' views, including the views on future relief measures, Mr. Paul said. All right, 1,700 words in the reply, but many of them are vague and general, making contribution for national development, etc. They are so vague and not specific. Now we are in deep waters. Xi Jinping said that the property market will continue to fall by 20% in the coming year. So we've been forced to make contributions, and we have to pay contributions to MPF and the sector assets not to be over worried with short-term volatilities. Now, if I am retiring soon, how should I make investment choices now? I don't want to criticize you heavily, but I'm asking whether you can help those who are retiring soon and who have lost in their MPF investments. Can you do something really concrete and specific? Can you give us a more specific and concrete reply, Secretary? Thank you. With regard to Mr. Xi's question, now my reply is, in my main reply, I have mentioned a number of measures contained in the policy address. They are very concrete. And within the government, we have offices to compete for talents and also enterprises with specific KPIs. These are very concrete, not vague, and we have very clear objectives and timetable. Now, the second question is about MPF contributions. I think same as all employees, myself is also concerned as to how we can improve the MPF system. And we're working on eMPF. We understand that the MPF system is run by the private market, and we want to offer choices for employees. To a large extent, the performance of funds is pegged to the market performance, and that's why in my main reply I said that MPF is for long-term investment of savings, so that upon retirement employees can yield returns, but then market volatilities will show in the performance of funds, and that's why I say that we should view MPF contributions in the long run is a long-term planning. And the whole design of the MPF system is long-term savings and for final harvest of profits. We should not just look at the short-term returns. After all, the yield is greatly linked to the market performance. What we can do is control costs. Now the administrative costs are high, and as a result, part of the MPF benefits have been eroded, and therefore we are working very hard with setting up the eMPF. Hopefully, it can be fully commissioned by 2025. I ask for Mr. Xi's understanding. Which part of your question has not been answered? What about employees that are retiring this year? What is your advice for them? In my reply, I covered a few aspects. First, whether we're talking about the government's plan and our forecast for the market, we have to consider the impact of the epidemic and external factors on people's livelihood. This is a very timely question because the Financial Secretary is going to start his consultation on the budget very soon, and we will see whether we have relief measures to help. After the meeting or on other occasions, we can exchange views with Mr. Xi and other members to see how we can assist the FS to make a better budget. Thank you. Mr. Tan Ka-piu. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Paul Xi for asking this question. Our people are in deep waters. Every day, what's in the news is some increases, 100% increase for Star Ferry prices, and we never imagined that Hong Kong Electricity could charge $2 for per unit of electricity. So the Secretary said that they're thinking about the next budget. My question for the Secretary is whether in the upcoming budget you will consider providing another round of electronic consumption voucher. Now, the vouchers can be used for paying utilities bill, so the people can use it for making to pay bills and not just for spending. inflation is not unique to Hong Kong. All economies are facing similar problems, and different governments have different measures to tackle not just inflation but other financial or livelihood issues. So this question is very timely. We're now preparing the budget, and we look forward to more views so that the budget can be more comprehensive. We'll continue to follow up with members after the meeting. Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you, President. My question also relates to MPF. The majority of our employees rely on MPF benefits and personal savings. The Secretary mentioned short-term volatilities. In fact, the loss in MPF gains have already eroded their gains in the past few years. There's been a drop of 23% in MPF returns, and that is just second to the 31% drop in 2008. While you cannot give us a concrete answer now, but can you tell us to what extent will the fall in MPF benefits before you think of a way to help people who are retiring in the coming few years? Now, as we all know, there are about 400 different funds for members to choose from. About 1/3 or 1/4 of the members have opted for default investment strategy, DIS. At the end of September, we have the core accumulation fund and also a fund for those over 65. The average yield was 3.2% and 0.7% respectively. That is the annualized return. Now, for those who have not opted for DIS, well, they may have lost because of the current market situation. Now, whether we are talking about the MPF system or retirement protection, we have to think of the objective of such plans. We are talking about long-term investment of savings. So we have to look at a long period of a longer horizon. Given the current market situations, individual sectors may face different scenarios because of the current conditions. So they need different measures, and they will be taken into account in the coming budget, and we will discuss with members afterwards. Mr. Frankie Yik, thank you. It's mentioned in the Secretary's main reply that the overall economic growth for this year is adjusted downwards to negative 3.2%. That's a warning sign for the public, and we will face a deficit of $100 billion. And yet our reserves are still at a healthy level. That's good news. And to cope with this situation, the government will continue to adopt inflationary or expansionary fiscal measures and use counter-cyclical measures, and when necessary, there will be measures to support the economy. Last weekend, the FS said similar remarks in a radio program. Secretary, can you follow up with the FS? Now, if there are going to be relief measures, don't wait until the budget, because we can't afford to wait longer. I'm afraid the coming winter will be too harsh. By the time the budget is announced, these relief measures may no longer be necessary because all businesses have closed down already. So can you please consider what subsidy or fuel subsidy you can be provided for the transport sector because of high oil prices? So, Secretary, are you going to tell the FS that relief measures should be launched as soon as possible and not until the budget is announced? Secretary, yes, Mr. Yik has given us a very clear signal that we should consider the timeliness of measures and do not just consider the what the measures are about. This is an excellent piece of advice. I will bring it back and see what can be done in our day-to-day work. Thank you. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. President, the Secretary in his main reply said that the employment market has improved. The unemployment rate in the third quarter was 3.9%. In fact, in August to October, the rate was only 3.8%, a further improvement. Isn't it strange? If you look at the busy spots of town with so many vacant shop premises and even established travel agencies have folded up. The reason why the unemployment rate has dropped is because we have lost we have a shrinking labor force. We have lost 140,000 employees in 2 years. This is a serious situation. And for economic stimulus, we need talents. We need manpower. This is a question the government cannot dodge. So, can you tell us how we can have confidence that we have improvement in our manpower to provide an impetus to our economy? Now, talents will follow opportunities. So we must stabilize the epidemic and continue to press ahead with the road to recovery. When we have economic activities, talents will stay here for the opportunities. Given our current economic framework, what new elements can we put in? Can we introduce new economic activities to bring new impetus to our economy? This is exactly what is mentioned in the policy address. We need to compete for talents and enterprises. We consolidate what we have and add new elements to ensure that our economy continue to grow in an orderly manner. We'll continue to listen to members' suggestions. Thank you.
Question number 5, Mr. Luk Chung Hong. In consultation to promote Charon technology, the government set up the Innovation Technology Fund for Application in Elderly and Rehabilitation Care in December 2018 to subsidize eligible elderly in rehabilitation service units to procure, rent, and try out technology products. Quite a number of elderly people have indicated their hope to improve the quality of life and promote personal health through Charon technology products for achieving aging in place. Nevertheless, it is learned that some elderly people can hardly afford the cost of such products or lack digital confidence as they do not have information technology skills, thus affecting the further popularization of Charon technology. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it has conducted a study on the popularization of Charon technology? If so, of the following information: 1, the number and age distribution of persons using the relevant products; 2, the number of subsidized and non-subsidized residential care homes for the elderly applying Charon technology; 3, the quantities and types of products sold and rented out; and 4, the sales volume of the products, if not the reasons for that; 2, of the measures in place to further encourage the application of Charon tech among the elderly, whether it will consider introducing Charon technology vouchers under the fund for which individuals can apply, so that the elderly can choose and purchase on their own suitable Charon technology products for use at home; and 3, whether it will consider allocating additional resources at the community level and inviting local organizations to assist the government in carrying out work on the popularization of IT, thereby enabling the elderly to build up digital confidence; if so, of the implementation timetable, if not the reasons for that. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. In consultation with the Innovation Technology and Industry Bureau, my consolidated reply is as follows, Mr. President. 1. In December 2018, the government allocated $1 billion to set up the Innovation Technology Fund for Application in Elderly and Rehab Care, the INT Fund, which subsidizes eligible elderly and rehabilitation service units to procure, rent, and try out technology products with a view to improving the quality of life of service users and reducing the burden and pressure on care staff and carers.
The government has since September 2022 expanded the application eligibility of the I&T fund to 427 private or self-financing residential care homes for the elderly and for the disabled, bringing the number of the service units which can benefit from the fund to 2,200. Thus far, 7 tranches of grants totaling over $470 million have been approved, subsidizing about 1,500 elderly and rehab service units to procure or rent over 12,000 technology products. The types of products that more services units apply for include ultra-low nursing bed, equipment and assessment tools for occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, tilt in space, height-adjustable shower chair, companion robot, smart anti-wandering system, etc. Both users and staff of the service units can benefit from these assistive technology products. The Social Welfare Department does not maintain the figures on the number and age distribution of the users of the products. 2. The Social Welfare Department has earmarked resources to expand the coverage of the Community Care Service Voucher for the Elderly, CCSV, to rental of assistive technology products in the third quarter of 2023 in order to meet the different needs of frail elderly persons aging in place, thus enhance their quality of life and reduce the burden on their carers. The number of beneficiaries will also gradually increase from 8,000 at present to 12,000 in 2025-26. It is understood that some of the more popular products in the market include nursing bed, wheelchair and mobility walker with special functions, armrest, shower chair, etc. The Social Welfare Department will consider adding suitable technology products to the rentable list, having regard to the needs of the elderly, and will announce the details in due course. 3. Over the years, the government has been proactively promoting digital inclusion and assisting the elderly to learn and adopt digital technology products and services. Since 2014, the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer, OGO, has launched the ICT Outreach Program for the elderly to subsidize non-profit-making organizations and their service networks, such as the elderly living in residential care homes, receiving daycare and home care services, and organize activities for these elderly to experience digital living. Service providers introduce technology elements in their activities, such as playing digital technology tutorial video clips through smart robots or using drones to conduct virtual community tours for the elderly to allow them experience the joy of digital technology. As of September 2022, around 22,300 elderly persons were benefited. Since the end of 2021, mobile outreach service stations have been set up under the outreach program on a pilot basis at various community locations frequented by the elderly, such as housing estates, shopping malls, and parks. The program serves to proactively assist elderly in districts to use smartphones and common mobile apps and answer their inquiries with a view to encouraging them to use digital technology in their daily lives. Since 2019, OGO, in collaboration with the elderly academies in various districts, has launched the Enriched ICT Training Program for the Elderly. Over 100 free digital training courses are provided to the elderly with basic knowledge on digital technology, including digital government services, online shopping, mobile payments, use of popular government apps like Hong Kong I Am Smart, Leave Home Safe, and Hong Kong Health Code. The training program also teaches elderly persons to learn and use jarring technology products, including digital brain training games, companion robots, etc. As of September 2022, more than 4,800 elderly persons have joined the training program. As of October 2022, the Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Fund, or SIE Fund, has funded a total of 438 projects, among which more than 50 projects make use of technology to improve the elderly's quality of life, benefiting over 14,000 elderly people. Examples include the R&D of a rapid testing kit for early detection of pneumonia, development of an upper limb robotic exoskeleton system to strengthen rehab training of stroke patients at home, the establishment of an online soft meal ordering and delivery platform to encourage the elderly to integrate into the community. In October 2021, the fund funded 4 innovative projects which promote intergenerational digital inclusion and enable youths to assist the elderly in learning and using digital technology. They include digital outreach rehab services, teaching the elderly the basic operations of tablets and smartphones, as well as the operation of mobile applications. The 4 projects are expected to benefit more than 3,700 elderly people and about 450 youths. Thank you. Mr. Michael Look. Thank you, Mr. President.
regarding the development of Giant technology, we need collaboration among manufacturers, the government, and the market so that we create an economic cycle. And there are also institutional uses and personal uses. Well, of course, for institutions, they receive subsidies, as per the reply. As for users, they can rent or try out technology products under the fund. So I'm disappointed. Now, my question is, in relation to the third part of the reply, at the community level, I ask whether local organizations can be engaged to assist the government in introducing courses to enhance digital inclusion among the elderly. That's because elderly people are strongly connected with the community organizations. They organize different festive activities for them. Now you have the SIE fund and you also the elderly academies, but less than 10,000 elderly people have joined. Whereas if you rely on local organizations, and I believe the Undersecretary, Mr. Ho Kai-ming, is most familiar with this part of the Bureau's work. They are familiar with organizing tech courses for the elderly. So additional courses should be provided to these organizations so that more elderly can participate in the courses instead of benefiting only a few thousand. Mr. President, well, at the elderly neighborhood centers or the district centers for the elderly, we have services that assist the elderly in using technology. And starting from the fourth quarter next year, the SWD will update the requirement so that altogether the 200 elderly centers and NECs will have to provide such services to the 150,000 elderly members. Apart from elderly members, they also welcome non-members to the centers. Ms. Lam So-wai, Hong Kong has an aging society and people's life expectancy is expected to increase, so digital inclusion is a hot topic now. Now, the Secretary referred to an outreach program for the elderly, but only 20,000 elderly people benefited from the scheme for the past 2 years. For the majority of elderly aging in place, they don't get help, and your program doesn't reach out to those living in the community. Many elderly people remain ignorant about the tech products. I understand that the care teams will be set up across the territory in 18 districts. Will resources be allocated so that youth ambassadors can be appointed at the community level to promote digital inclusion and that they can teach elderly people in the community to use technology? And, well, Ms. Lam So-wai, you should only ask one question. Please take a seat. Secretary. Mr. President, I thank Ms. Lam So-wai for her question. Indeed, if we want to promote Giant technology products among the elderly, especially when we're talking about assistive equipment such as wheelchairs, we need to engage professionals who will teach elderly people how to use them, and these products also require regular maintenance. I understand that some community organizations are already participating in this area. Of course, we need Giant technology product and we also need service providers. The voucher scheme will see an increase in the voucher amount, and then if we have more users renting technology products, then with more resources available, then more service providers will be joining the market to provide suitable Giant technology products for the elderly. Mr. Bill Tang, well, prevention is better than cure. So when it comes to Giant tech products, they are mostly for elderly people living in the community with moderate impairment requiring a moderate level of care. Still, prevention is better than cure. Recently, a community organization has sponsored the procurement of motion-censored lamps for the elderly. Normally, elderly people will not buy such products themselves. So I agree with Mr. Michael Look that we need to enlist the support of community organizations. Now, Secretary, would you consider setting up a matching fund let's say if we have clansmen's associations and district organizations investing, say, $1 on a Jarentech product, the government then provides a matching fund of $1, so that in the end, instead of having 1,000 lamps for the elderly, we can have 2,000 lamps for them. Mr. President, the government is happy to explore with community organizations on the wider use of Jarent technology products. Maybe not so much high-end tech products, but just a simple piece of equipment that could help improve the quality of living of the elderly. However, we must avoid a broad brush approach. We're happy to have further discussions with community organizations to improve the policy. Mr. Stanley Lee. It is government's policy to have aging in place as a core and institutional care as a backup. And I understand that under this fund, you receive applications for procuring and using tech products. Many elderly people and their carers, however, just stay at home, and it seems that Jarent technology has yet to become popular. So the government should step up publicity. Earlier, the Jarentech and Innovation Expo Summit was held, but it's difficult to invite elderly people living far away to attend the summit. So at the district level, such Jarentech centers should be set up to showcase the elderly how their quality of living can be improved through using these products. Secretary, indeed, it is important to mount publicity. And at the Jarentech Innovation Expo, I saw some elderly visitors. But of course, these elderly people might not have a mobility issue. And we're happy to mount publicity to promote Jarentech products at the community level. I understand that there is already a demonstration center in Sha Tin subsidized by or sponsored by the Hong Kong Jockey Club. They showcase anti-wandering systems, mobility walkers, etc. Mr. Holden Chow. Jarent technology is one hot topic in our country and in Hong Kong. Now, for part one of the reply, I understand that there are 12,000 Jarentech products available for use by the elderly, but the Social Welfare Department does not maintain the figures on the number and age distribution of the users of these products. Now, my question is this. The Social Welfare Department should improve the after-sales service or as part of the customer service by gauging the effectiveness of the products and receiving feedback from elderly users. So will something be done to get the feedback, post-sale feedback? Secretary. Yes, we can try to get more information about the use of these products in rehabilitation service units. We don't maintain the figures as requested because mostly these products are used in residential care homes, and different elderly residents require different levels of care. And if we ask for more details, this would mean a greater administrative burden on the care homes. Still, we're happy to learn more about the use of Jarent technology products. Mr. Paul Jay. Towards the end of the Secretary's reply, he referred to innovative projects enlisting youth to assist the elderly in using Jarent technology product. And this is one way to go because we have, some layabout youth at home. They are simply idling. So we should mobilize them to help out in these projects. But rather than short-term projects, will you consider setting up a fund in the long term so as to combine elderly people with the youths to further take forward the initiative? Secretary, indeed, like Mr. Chair said, young people are good at digital technology, and elderly people need to learn about digital technology. And I understand that we have a lot of such activities at the community level. That means young people helping elderly to learn, helping young people learn about digital technology. But of course, we can promote digital inclusion.
Last oral question, Mr. Parry, you. Mr. Parry, you. Some in the tourism industry have related that the industry has been hard hit by COVID for nearly 3 years. Although the government has relaxed arrival quarantine and anti-epidemic measures, such measures still cause great inconvenience to inbound travelers, resulting in limited room for business development. In the first 9 months of 2022, the number of visitor arrivals was 250,000, a drastic drop of 99.5% as compared with 47 million for the same period in 2018. The tourism and related industries desperately need to learn the government's direction and timetable for adjusting the measures. So will the government inform this council, one, whether in the light of the latest epidemic, it has assessed what conditions Hong Kong needs to meet before further relaxation of the arrival quarantine to a certain extent that inbound persons are not required to undergo compulsory quarantine or medical surveillance so as to facilitate the industry's recovery. Two, how it is taking forward the arrangement to resume more people movement between Hong Kong and the mainland, whether it has examined using hotels in Hong Kong as pre-departure quarantine facilities to strive for a breakthrough for traveller clearance system between the two places. If so, of details. Three, given the tourism industry has long been in a standstill and that to resume business, the industry needs to recruit manpower afresh and carry out repair and maintenance to the conveyances, equipment and facilities lying idle, thereby causing huge cash flow pressure, whether the government will consider formulating support measures like the Travel Industry Business Resumption Fund to facilitate a relaunch of the industry. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. President, in respect of the question raised by Mr. Perry Yeo, having consulted the HHB, TLB and FSTB, the consolidated reply is as follows. One, the direction of our adjustments of prevention and control measures is simple and clear, that is, to reduce restrictions as far as practicable on the premise of proper management of risks. For example, on inbound control measures, the government lifted compulsory quarantine on 26th of September, putting an end to the requirement which has been in place for more than 2 years. And starting from November 21st, enhanced inbound testing by lifting the compulsory nucleic acid test on days 4 and 6 for inbound persons from overseas and Taiwan. The government will continue to tackle COVID according to the principles of science-based and targeted measures, as well as risk management and citizen-focused facilitation. The government will also adjust measures based on scientific data to facilitate activities and people flow essential to social economic recovery, so as to safeguard people's well-being and protect public health while reducing disruption to achieve the greatest effect with the lowest cost. The government adopts a prudent and stable approach in adjusting measures in order to avoid a rebound and backtracking along the path to normal as far as practicable. The government will continue to closely monitor the situation outside Hong Kong, possible risks arising from winter flu, development of variants, and the capacity of local healthcare system, etc. Where conditions permit, the government will enhance various measures in a progressive manner. We will be able to create the greatest room for people's livelihood and economic activities if we continue to stand united. The government had been making efforts to pursue resumption of connections with the mainland, including discussion with the mainland on issues like pre-departure quarantine and the compassionate quotas for traveling to Shenzhen, and will spare no effort in deliberating with mainland to resume normal cross-boundary travel in a gradual and orderly manner, on the premise of not increasing the risk in the mainland. As for the pre-departure quarantine, mainland-bound travelers will be required to comply with the standards of the mainland in order to be able to travel under the closed-loop arrangement. Hong Kong and Shenzhen are discussing the specific requirements in this regard. 3, the government understands the business hardship facing the tourism industry and has rolled out measures with $3.88 billion funding commitment in the past 2 years, supporting 1,700 travel agents, 2,100 practitioners, 2,100 hotels and guest houses, and the cruise industry. The trade has also benefited from 2 rounds of employment support scheme and license fee waiver. In addition, we launched the Cultural and Heritage Sites local tour last month with a commitment of $600 million and rolled out from this month new rounds of spend to redeem local tours and staycation delights. We will provide extra rounds of quota under the Green Lifestyle local tour next month in a bid to boost local retail resumption and hotel and catering business and further support the trade. In respect of non-franchise buses, the government has provided a one-off non-accountable subsidy of $95,000 for each owner of non-franchise buses, including Tour Service A1 endorsement under the AEF. For the cross-boundary passenger transport trade, the government provided subsidies to the trade at different times from 2020 to help pay for the maintenance and inspection of related vehicles or ferries. So far, a total of 155,000, 145,000, and 3 million have been granted to each cross-boundary coach, cross-boundary hire car, and cross-boundary ferry vessel, respectively. In order to alleviate the financial burden, the government has waived various license-related fees since 2019 and provided temporary parking spaces for idle non-franchised buses. Operators of the non-franchised buses with tour service endorsement, cross-boundary coaches, and cross-boundary hire cars also benefited from that. The pre-approved principal payment holiday scheme has been further extended for 6 months to end of July 2023, with a partial principal repayment option enhanced to facilitate financially capable corporates to gradually resume normal payment. The government has been committed to expanding, as far as practicable, room for business operation for the trade on the premise of containing and combating the epidemic. We've allowed travelers to enter attractions like theme parks, museums, temples when holding Lambert Cove since last Thursday, and launched last Friday arrangements for inbound tour groups, including allowing them to have meals in private rooms in restaurants as a group, and travelers to undergo only 1 nucleic test on arrival if the tour group will stay for no more than 4 days. The government will closely monitor the epidemic and maintain communication with the trade with a view to preparing for recovery. Mr. Perry Yu, President, in his reply, the Secretary said that $3.8 billion has been earmarked to support the trade. Now, this sounds a huge amount, but in fact, of the $300 billion, it is 1 point something percent of the total scheme of things. The tourism trade has been struggling for almost like 4 years. If you include at the end of 2019, 3.8 billion represents a peanut. The trade is in dire situation. Now we are beginning to emerge out of the hardship. We do need the government support. Towards the end of 2019, the government introduced the incentive scheme for the travel agents, which will come to an end by the end of this year. Will the government be introducing further measures to boost the business of the tourism sector? Well, $3.88 billion is no small sum at all. Over the past 2 years or 3 years of epidemic, many sectors were subject to different level of impacts. The tourism trade did bear quite a bit of the brunt. The inbound travelers represent a small number as of now, we can see that in the new administration, we have been creating room in the anti-pandemic measures to allow activities to go on. Like as I said in the principal reply, for the inbound travel groups, we have introduced a number of measures to benefit them, having regard to the safety of COVID prevention. If there is room for us to create more business, we would do so. I mean, this is the ultimate solution to the problem. As we said in the principal reply, we also have the Green Lifestyle local tour, the Spend to Redeem local tours, and so on. These are the measures that we introduced during this difficult period. We are supporting the travel agents to let them continue with the business. Mr. Yu talked about the incentive schemes for the travel agents. We are examining the overall utilization of the sum, and by the end of December, we will work out how we take this forward. Where resources permit, we are prepared to offer subsidies. Mr. Lee Chen-keung. Thank you, President. Secretary, the tourism trade is one of the four main industries in Hong Kong. Because of COVID, this sector has borne a really severe brunt. They have had zero business, and they have spent 3 years in deep freeze. And there are many agencies that are entertaining mainland tourists that have got afforded. Now, other than the measures that you mentioned to help the recovery, will you in the near future do something about these sectors that are in dire situation? Are you going to offer them any relief money for them? Secretary. Now, as we said in the principal reply, during this period, we saw that the tourism sector needed support, and that's why we have introduced the $600 million cultural and heritage site local tour, and we are also introducing this new round of Spend to Redeem local tours. All of these will enable us to provide more support for the local tourism sector in the shortest possible period of time. It would be hard for us to achieve the pre-COVID business level straight away. So we are doing everything we can to allow more room for the trade to entertain tour groups to Hong Kong. And if there are outbound tours, we are encouraging these. Also, as I said in the principal reply, with the adjustment to the COVID measures, people will find it more easy to come back to Hong Kong, and this will also generate some outbound businesses. We do appreciate the difficulties. We are paying close attention to the situation. We maintain communication with the trade with a view to helping the sector tide over this difficulty. Mr. Edmund Wong, President, we had a committee on the GPA. We did talk about this issue. I asked the administration for the past 3 years how many practitioners have quit the trade. When the trade comes back, how many are prepared to join again? But we didn't get the figures from the administration. I heard that outside they have already ditched all these COVID measures. Now, we have 0+3, and people are nonplussed about what this is all about. Now, we are trying to lure tourists to Hong Kong. Mr. Secretary, with 0+3 and with the existence of this PCR test, how can we disseminate to the people outside that this 3 in 0+3 is not about hotel quarantine. Secretary, we discussed the issues with the travel agents and the practitioners. Some travelers may have a bit of misunderstanding about the situation. We are discussing with the tourism board to see how we can do something about the publicity, in particular publicity for the region, for the Southeast Asian tourists. We should explain to them the precise requirements of these epidemic control measures. Now, for people coming in, if they are amber code holders, they cannot enter places where they have to take off their mask, but they can visit the attractions even on day one. So upon arrival, they have to undergo the PCR test, and a lot of the requirements have been relaxed. So we are going to be mounting more publicity regarding the measures. We will publicize on the website, and together with the CHP, we will certainly disseminate more information to make the inbound tourists more aware of the precise details of the arrangement. Dr. Dick Ji-yun, President, the Secretary has been talking for more than 10 minutes. He's not really helping the trade. The trade is really in dire strait. The 0+3 measure doesn't really help. So is 0+0 on the agenda for discussion now? And under what circumstances are you going to be introducing a 0+3 protocol? Perhaps I defer to the Health Bureau. President, thank you. Thanks very much, Dr. Tick, for the question. 0+3 and 0+0, like the Chief Executive said, the numbers do not make any particular sense. It's all a matter of what we are doing. Currently, is there any room for us to further relax the inbound measures? There are certain important factors that have to be taken into account. First, our healthcare system, the capacity of the system, whether we have a sufficiently strong barrier against COVID, but there are certain factors that are beyond our control. First, the epidemic situation the world over. Are there any problems with regard to the inbound tourists? And the second is the subvariants. From Delta to Omicron, the virus has been undergoing a lot of mutation, and this is really having an impact on our measures. We are monitoring the pandemic situation. If you notice, the figures in the recent week show that we registered 7,000, 8,000 a daily caseload, and for inbound cases, it's about 400 or thereabout. Now, so this shows that the number has been increasing from 200 to 600. So we're monitoring the numbers, and we like to relax where possible. But given the current state of the pandemic, we have to tread carefully there. Mr. Paul J. President, we heard many times from the health officials or the chief executive that we're going to be backtracking. It sounds as if this is a very reasonable and conservative approach for the sake of the public health. But we cannot, even the virus is undergoing mutation. You said that we are not going to be backtracking if we are too conservative, if we are unable to make changes according to the situation. This is really detrimental, not just the tourism trade, but also the economy of Hong Kong and also the nation. The chief executive seems to be saying something that is that sounds right, but have you really pondered whether you're doing the right thing? Right. Undersecretary for Health. President, for the younger people, and also those under 60, they do have a good vaccine coverage. But if the young has introduced the virus into the family, the young and the old do not have good enough immunity. Now, recently, we have 10 children who lost their lives to COVID. Now, this is a pretty high number. The winter flu is upon us, and we have seen RSV that is happening in other parts of the world. Now, with all these conditions coexisting, it is very dangerous, very risky to us. If the healthcare system collapsed, it would certainly affect not just the COVID patients, but also any other patients as well. So we have to have regard to the overall picture and be cautious. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok. President, thank you. The question raised by Mr. Perry, in the second part is very clear. Are you going to be using the hotels in Hong Kong as the pre-departure quarantine facilities? And also, whether there will be any fund to be created to facilitate the resumption of the tourism trade. The Secretary refrained from answering this question. Are you going to be answering these two questions direct, yes or no, Secretary? Or the second part of the question about the pre-departure quarantine, as we said in the principal reply, we are in discussion with the mainland authorities about the specific details of this pre-departure quarantine proposal. Until the discussion is over, it would be hard for me to address the question raised by Mr. Lai. Now, the third part of the question about the travel industry business resumption fund, as we said in the principal reply, we have provided a whole host of schemes for the trade in order to tide the trade over this very difficult period and to prepare them for the resumption of business. Now, with regard to the proposed resumption fund, it doesn't say what this should entail. So all I can do is to let members know what we have been doing. In the long run, if the members do have more specifics about the resumption fund and what specifically we should do, we will certainly consider this.
Government Bill. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Palliative Amendment Bill 2022. Mr. Frankie Yik. President, I speak to support the Palliative Amendment Bill 2022. The bill seeks to relax restrictions on medical examination and the adjustments of pilotage dues, as well as other various amendments. On the 26th of October, this bill was first read at this Council. No members asked for a Bills Committee to be set up to scrutinize this bill. As you know that we have no objection. According to the requirements, in relation to ships that are 3,000 gross tonnage or over, or ships of 1,000 gross tonnage or over carrying dangerous goods and gas carriers of any gross tonnage are required to be under the pilotage of licensed pilots within the waters of Hong Kong. For pilots, they have to do a medical examination once every 2 years. Those above the age of 65 will have to go through the examination once a year. Pilots have to work irregular hours and they have to work on shift. Sometimes they work round the clock before they have a day off of 24 hours. That means they work 24 hours and then have one whole day off. If there is any delay of ocean-going vessels, then they will have to change our work hours. They have to be alert. They have to be highly focused to tackle emergency situations. As a result, pilots will try to rest as much as possible on their day off. If they can only undergo medical examination at specific clinics, that is very difficult for them, especially for those who have to undergo examination once a year. As a result, the government proposes to change the law to allow certain medical practitioners to conduct the medical examination. And on top of that, there is an exemption that under certain conditions, pilots can be waived with the medical examination once a year. 80% of our goods go through the shipping route. With rapid development in other ports, the throughput of Hong Kong ports is decreasing. In 2008, there was the friction, Sino-US friction, and there is the epidemic. The trade has been hard hit. And in 2021, only about 40% of ships visited Hong Kong compared to 2016. For pilotage dues, the last change was 2016. Back in 2018, there was a review done on the level of dues, and it was endorsed by the advisory committee that there would be an increase up by 3.5%. However, the government has not been coming to the LegCo to ask for an adjustment. Then there was the change of LegCo term, and now we see this adjustment. Between 2016 to now, there is an 11.4% of inflation change. Now we only ask for about 9% in adjustment, only to catch up with the level of inflation. Per year is less than 2%. The Hong Kong Liner Shipping Association are major users. They support this adjustment. So the pilotage dues will not affect the number of ocean-going vessels coming to Hong Kong. There will not be any impact on the development of our shipping industry. Pilots will have to accumulate certain amount of experience before they can do the job. Experienced master of vessels, if they are to be qualified to do the pilotage service for vessels over 350 meters, they will have to have an experience of at least 6 years. We have to ensure that there is a sufficient supply for pilots. I asked the government to regularly review pilotage dues to make sure that the industry itself is competitive. In order to become a pilot, you will have to have marine experience as well as experience as masters. However, there is a serious shortage of manpower. Young people don't want to join the trade. There is a serious succession problem. There is an actual gap. The trade has been actively trying to recruit, but there is still limited supply. For seamen, you will have to finish relevant training at the academy. The academy itself only offers 60 places per year. It does nothing to address the manpower shortage problem. I asked the government to consider the amount of subsidy under the relevant scheme to attract more young people to join the trade. At the same time, the scope of the subsidy scheme should be expanded. Apart from subsidy provided to youngsters, practitioners who want to get a higher level of license should receive subsidy as well. And I asked the government to launch publicity to junior high students. And there should be an increase of number of places in the academy to train sufficient amount of manpower to meet the needs. In 2020, starting from the 1st of January, the government has made changes. Well, when it comes to pilotage at Tai Pang Wan, then trained pilots will have to be used. because of the two different types of pilots you used, it increases cost. In order to avoid vessels trying to cut costs by avoiding Yantian port and the port in Hong Kong, we welcome to the government's proposal to align the practice. Starting from the 1st of June, mainland pilots will work with Hong Kong pilots to provide pilotage services in Myers Bay. They will work alternatively to provide pilotage service at Myers Bay. That means there is a mutual recognition of the qualification of pilots of the two places. It can serve as a reference. But when it comes to pilot boats as well as pilot themselves, every time they provide a service, they have to make a report to mainland authorities. It's time-consuming and reduces flexibility. We hope that the government will talk to mainland authorities to simplify immigration procedures of Hong Kong pilots. We enjoy a very long history when it comes to our shipping industry. Pilots provides a quality service. In Hong Kong, we have marine leasing, financing, marine industry, admiralty, insurance, etc. The government should continue to consolidate our position by implementing smart port initiatives to drive down cost so that we can make our contribution to national development and serve in the new dual circulation development approach. I so speak to support the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Yim Kong. Thank you, President. I support the resumption of reading of the Pilotage Amendment Bill in order to ensure safety for our vessels, and also we would take care of the health of the pilots, and that would also be a very healthy supplement to the whole system. And with the increase in the costs, I think there should be adjustment to the pilotage dues, and that's also the first adjustment in years. The relevant stakeholders, including the Pilots Association and also the Liner Shipping Association and this council, have been consulted, and they all support this. I'd like to make 3 points. In recent years, with the volatility in the market this year, the cost has come down, and for the Far East and also for the European routes, the container fees has come down from $14,000 to some 4,000, and for the transportation costs, it also came down from about 11,000 to about $2,000 now, and we have already reverted to the costs in 2019, and yet costs for other areas have gone up, and therefore many people have found it difficult to cover the cost. In order to face up to this, the mainland government's policy is that for pilotage dues, they would offer concessions. For example, this year, they introduced a new measure under the National Reform and Reform Commission's proposal, so that pilotage dues was reduced. But then in Hong Kong, of course, we have our own cost consideration, and I think this proposed adjustment is understandable. And yet, in making adjustments in the future, the relevant factors will also have to be taken on board. And the overall cost in Hong Kong has been quite high, and also in terms of the throughput and turnover, that has also come down in recent years, and therefore for logistics costs, and those would also be the considerations by the administration. Secondly, the Marine Department and also the Hong Kong Pilots Association have to improve the quality of service, and they would also have to be more aware of the importance of services, and they would also have to reduce the period for waiting, because pilotage exchange would also be a very important, and therefore that's also a very important subject of exchange between the Hong Kong and mainland authorities, because many vessels will have to visit both Hong Kong and mainland ports. And in recent years, there have been bottlenecks in the interfacing, and therefore you will have to continue to enhance the relevant arrangements while ensuring safety. You would also have to enhance the capacity, or else some routes might choose not to make use of the Hong Kong navigational route, and they would just go straight to Shenzhen. Next, pilots are also having this problem of aging, and therefore you will have to step up training in order to increase the number of new recruits, and safety costs has already gone up in recent years, and therefore you will have to review the technical requirements for pilots while ensuring safety. You would also have to ensure that for vessels coming in and out of Hong Kong, you will have to provide convenience to them. With these remarks, I support the passage of this bill. Does any other member wish to speak? If none, I'll invite the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to speak, and then we will end our scrutiny of this.
President, I move to resume the second reading of the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022, the bill for short. First of all, I thank members for their support of the bill. Now we have the second reading debate of the bill here. And I thank members for their views. The bill was introduced to LegCo for first and second reading in October 2022. It seeks to amend Pilotage Ordinance Cap 84 and its subsidiary legislation to improve the medical examination arrangement for pilots as well as other existing practices, to adjust the pilotage dues, and to introduce other miscellaneous amendments. The bill proposes to allow medical practitioners, including those in the private sector registered in Hong Kong, to carry out medical examination and re-examination for pilots in accordance with relevant medical standards. Currently, these examinations are carried out by medical officers appointed by the Director of Health and Marine Department officers. Taking into account the fact that pilots work irregular hours, the proposed amendment provides more flexibility for pilots to arrange for registered medical practitioners to carry out these examinations. The bill also proposes to expand the current provisions of exemption from medical examination applicable to applicants for pilot license to medical examination of licensed pilots in order to align the arrangements. In addition, the bill proposes to adjust pilotage dues mutually agreed by pilots and the liner shipping trade. The miscellaneous amendments in the bill include removal of obsolete references, empowerment of Marine Department officers not below the rank of marine inspectors to require a pilot to produce their pilot license for inspections, etc. These amendments aim to keep the ordinance abreast with the times, to refine current practices, and to facilitate enforcement. I thank members for their support in relation to the observations and views mentioned by members, and this is my reply. Some members talk about manpower development for pilots. That itself is a crucial area for the development of the trade. In order to attract more youngsters to join the trade, we have award schemes and trade and subsidy schemes to encourage youngsters to join professional training courses to acquire the skills. We work with the trade to target the general public, in particular youngsters, about engagement in the marine industry. We will continue to publicize our work, including the seagoing training incentive scheme, to attract youngsters to join the trade in order to meet manpower needs. In order to train manpower to meet the development needs of the trade, we make use of various scholarships, training schemes, and programs to build a pool of talent. Some members talk about pilotage services at Myers Bay. On the 15th of March this year, the Marine Department, together with the relevant department in the Shenzhen municipal government, signed a framework agreement on pilotage service. It came into operation on the 1st of June. The operation runs smoothly. So far, 18 Shenzhen pilots and 20 Hong Kong pilots have been qualified to join the program. We'll monitor the implementation of the new arrangement. We will work out details for improvement with the Shenzhen side. To consolidate and enhance our status as an international shipping center, we will work on a high value adding professional services. This bill proposes improvement measures to better meet the operational needs of the trade and to maintain the efficient and smooth operation of pilotage services. The government has consulted the Pilotage Advisory Committee, which composed of stakeholders from the shipping sector and pilotage sector, on the legislative proposal, and they support it. I ask members to support the passage of the bill. I so submit. Thank you. And I put the question to you that Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022 be read the second time. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of members present. I declare the motion passed. Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022. This council now becomes a committee of the whole council to consider the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022. I now propose the question to you that the following clauses stand part of the bill. Clauses 1 to 16. Does any member wish to speak? Mr. So Cheong-Wing.
If none, then I'll put the question to the vote. I put the question to you that the clauses read out by the clerk stand part of the bill. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. All the proceedings on the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022 have been concluded in Committee of the Whole Council. Council now resumes. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, I now report to the Council that the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022 has been passed by Committee of the Whole Council without amendment. I move the motion that this Council adopts the report. I now propose the question to you that the Secretary's motion be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Third reading. Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, I move that the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022 be read the third time and do pass. I now propose the question to you that the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022 be read the third time and do pass. Does any member wish to speak? I'll now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Pilotage Amendment Bill 2022. Members' motions on the period for amending subsidiary legislation. Two proposed resolutions under the Interpretation and General Clauses Ordinance to extend the period for amending subsidiary legislation. First motion, to extend the period for amending the Control of Chemicals Ordinance Amendment Schedule 2, Order 2022, and the Dangerous Drugs Ordinance Amendment of First Schedule Order 2022. which were laid on the table of this Council on the 26th of October 2022. I now call upon Honourable Elizabeth Court to move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I propose the question to you, and that is that Ms. Elizabeth Court's motion be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. Second motion, to extend the period for amending the Smoking Public Health Designation of No Smoking Areas Amendment Notice 2022, which was laid on the table of this Council on the 26th of October 2022. I now call upon Mr. Lau Kok Fan to move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I propose the motion to you that Mr. Lau Kok Fan's motion be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion passed.
Members' motion with no legislative effect. Honourable Benson Look will move a motion on formulating a policy and a blueprint on facilitating young people's upward mobility. 3 members will move amendments to the motion. This Council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I'll first call upon Honourable Benson Look to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Honourable Kenneth Leung, Honourable Rock Chan, and Honourable Jovi Chan to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I now call upon Honourable Benson Look to speak and move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. This is about formulating a policy and a blueprint on facilitating young people's upward mobility. Hong Kong will prosper only when its young people thrive, and our country will be strong only when its young people are strong. President Xi, in his 20th Party Congress report, talked about facilitating youth development and upward mobility of young people. And this is also a reminder that youth development work is a strategic project. In 1921, the first CCP party was convened in Shanghai. In 1922, there was another major event, and it's the establishment of a Communist Youth League. Now it's 2022, and our ruling party is moving ahead. It leads Hong Kong SAR out by 100 years, but we need to get a start anyway. There's a chapter in the policy address on youth development, and it's announced that the first version of the youth development blueprint will be published this year. So young people will get the very first tailor-made policy. There will be objectives, goals, and conceptual framework. Well, I have been involved in youth work for more than 20 years. Last year, when I ran my election, I mentioned that we would take this young youth work as an important task. And now I want to devote my first motion debate to young people so that we can give young people more confidence. If we look around the world, for example, the UK, Sweden, Australia, and New Zealand, Japan, and Mongolia all got their youth policies, dedicated youth policies. And there's a plan for 2016 to 2025 in the National Youth Development Plan. And it covers things such as marriage of young people. It's part of the population policy. And for locally, in the past, our youth development policies are found in different places. It's not very tangible. Now we have 7 areas of work, and the youth development blueprint will provide a unified and coherent blueprint for different measures and policies instead of having all sorts of policies scattered in 9 policy areas. Now we need to have a bureau taking the lead and the work of different departments. and to utilize and integrate the social resources so that the young people will be assisted in overcoming difficulties in education, career pursuit, entrepreneurship, and home ownership. They will be more actively participate in public affairs, and the right conditions should be formulated to help them to move up the social mobility, so that people have more choice, more options, and they know what to choose and what are good for them, so that they would contribute to the rejuvenation of China. Youth upward mobility must be supported by tangible measures and policies. I would like to quote some example in the hope of attracting bright ideas. First of all, home ownership is a very good example in terms of difficulties faced by young people. Now we have young youth hostels promoted by the government. This is a policy formulated by the government, and the NGOs will be asked to provide hostel by utilizing guest house rooms and hotel rooms. This is a laudable policy. I hope this can be applied to other more policies for young people. For example, the mentorship scheme for young people. That would be a very good beginning. And a veteran practitioner in youth work has asked me why young people are so eager to own a home. It used to be the case that people would have to save up money for many years before they buy a home. But of course, people who want to move upwards in society, they want to be able to contribute to society. And this is in contrast with some other people who advocate that the youth should just stay put. But now, in terms of own home ownership, the biggest obstacle is the ability to pay the down payment. We need to deregulate and provide facilitation. For example, the MPF would be there for their retirement after they have worked for 30 years, and they may have to rent a home. So I would like to suggest that we would allow young people to use their MPF account balance to pay the down payment in the form of a loan. And there should be more sites for first-time homeowners. The government should keep this promise so that people see hope in home ownership. Another thing I want to talk about is the education. We used to talk about the pre-vocational stage, but now we want to seek high-quality development in SAR. We want to promote lifelong learning. This is very important for our mobility. In local university, the tuition fee will be something like 100,000 or so, but the CEF only offer 25,000. So it's enough for paying the tuition fee for half a term. We should borrow from the idea of couples using the voucher scheme for senior citizens. So we should allow the family members to use their CEF entitlement to help young people pursue further studies. When we talk about young people, we are not talking about a coherent, homogeneous group. The policy address talk about setting a number of KPIs. I hope for youth development there will be a KPI. For example, the rehabilitation of young prisoners. I know different organizations and individuals would like to guide these young people to the right path. I hope we can tell these people that if they turn a new leaf, if they live their life in accordance with legal requirements, they will have a future. There are so many youth difficulties when it comes to participation in public affairs. There are many schemes run by the government. As for the GBA initiatives, there are also other facilitation measures. So I think that there are so many of them that I should pause here. if we want to implement faithfully the youth development program, we should avoid the question of going for the statistical achievement. Young people have a vision. If they have visions, they are energetic and are committed, then our country will have a bright future. The rejuvenation of nation would necessitate the participation of young people. I hope SAR government would nurture talent which are able up to the task of contributing to the development of Hong Kong and China. And lastly, I think the core idea is to pass on, is the inheritance and the passing on of our cultural heritage. I thank all the members who are going to move amendments. The President, the Deputy, Ms. Sari Lee and other members from various sectors for their assistance. With these remarks, I move my motion.
I now call upon Mr. Kenneth Leung to speak on the motion. Madam Deputy, well, for a long while, upward mobility in Hong Kong has been difficult, and Hong Kong young people have been thinking that however hard they try, they would not be able to move up the social ladder. And with the speeding up of a pace of development, Hong Kong young people are facing more and more difficulties. That's the reason why they feel frustrated. So there is an urgent need for us to come up with a comprehensive blueprint for the development of the youth, so that I would be able to provide a vision for them, so that they think that their future is bright and there is hope. And therefore, I'd like to thank the DAB for coming up with this motion. It shows the importance of youth to society, and it's also proposed that we have to make timely adjustment to the youth development blueprint in order to catch up with time. All right, young people are the pillars of our future, and therefore it means that it's very important for us to provide development opportunities for them. And the State President, Mr. Xi, has also emphasized the importance of young people, and if they thrive, our country will thrive, and therefore we will be insisting on opening up our country, and therefore the young people will be able to develop their potential while the country is opening up, and therefore we will have to view this as a strategic move, and therefore we will have to understand them. We will have to be the carer of the youth, and we would also have to be the mentor of youth, so that people or young people who are willing to work harder and who are willing to contribute to a community, they should be given the chance to do so. And secondly, youth development should also cover the fact that we will have to increase the national pride and sense of being the masters, because they are integrating into our overall development, and therefore under the 14th Five-Year Plan and also the GPA development and also the high quality development for our country, we will have to make the pie bigger, so that young people will be able to move up the ladder, either in Hong Kong or on the mainland or elsewhere. But then, because of recent developments, many young people do not have national pride or sense of belonging, and sometimes they might lack the understanding, and they might also have some misunderstanding our country. So number one thing that we have to do is to give them the correct knowledge, so that they know that since the opening up and reform of our country has been developing in leaps and bounds, and they would also have a greater sense of belonging, and they would also have the national pride, and they would also understand that there is a line that cannot cross over. And the government would also have to give them more opportunities to be involved in community development. They would also have to have the chance to take part in politics, so that they would have this sense of being the masters, and they would also have a greater perspective, and they would also be willing to struggle for the future of our country. And also the youth blueprint would also have to be updated on a regular basis, so that they would think that this is a living document, and it resonates with young people, and it requires different bureaus to work together, and they would have to show importance to young people. But then the most important thing is whether or not this document can resonate with young people, and therefore, in drafting the document, the administration must make sure that it would not be working behind closed doors. They would have to consult the stakeholders, that is the youth, before they can come up with a living document. I believe that the blueprint is a living document. In the long run, we have to make sure that it's updated in a timely manner. In the policy address this year, you also talk about youth development 2.0, and in terms of the period where they can stay in the youth hostels and so on, you would have to look at social development and circumstances. We have to make sure that the blueprint will move with time, and it has to be visionary. It will have to show the youth that they are facing the challenges of global changes, and therefore they will have to cope with it. And in the to be announced youth development blueprint, they will have to deal with the youth difficulties in four areas. They would also have to integrate into our national development. They would also have to be forward-looking. They would also have to move ahead. And therefore, I hope that you will support my amendment. Thank you. Next, Mr. Rock Chen. Madam Deputy, I support Mr. Benson Look's motion on coming up with a youth development blueprint because if young people thrive, then our country will also become strong. So I support the administration's initiative to support the young people so that they be able to seize the opportunities for upward mobility from our country and also from Hong Kong. And we will have to guide them so that they would be able to tell a good Hong Kong and China story so that they can contribute to the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation together. This is a very good vision, and I would support it. But then in order to achieve these objectives, the premise is that we will have to develop their sense of belonging, and they would also have to have national pride. They would also have to have positive values in life. What does that mean? What does it mean by having this sense of belonging? First, they will have to understand our country. They will have to know the culture, the economy, the history, and also the technology of our country before they can have this sense of dignity or sense of pride. And if young people do not understand their own country, or if they don't even have the home return permit, then how can they integrate into our national development? And if there are newspapers bad-mouthing our country, then if they lost confidence, then how can they tell a good China story? So in order to make sure that our young people will thrive and our country will be strong, then I think the first thing to do is to make sure that they understand the different aspects of our country. I think that's the prerequisite for our young people. And in order to have this national understanding, then we will have to make sure that the school's curriculum and also extra curricular activities will be able to tie in with one another. At school, they will have to learn about the Constitution, the Basic Law, and also the National Security Law so that they would have a full understanding of our country. And other than what they can learn from textbooks, young people would also have to engage in extracurricular activities and also their life experience in order for them to understand our country. Well, even in terms of entertainment, on the mainland, many young people like to watch TV dramas and so on. They are very popular with young people, and therefore, these are also entertaining moments when they can learn more about our country. And of course, the most important thing is for them to have exchanges and visit the mainland so that they be able to see for themselves what is happening, so that they can see and listen and feel for themselves what is happening on the mainland. Well, I can share with you my experience. Well, back in 2014, together with some of our fellow lawmakers like Kenneth Fogg and Mr. Leung Yok-wai and so on, we organized together for 800 young people to went with us to Harbin to conduct a visit. And in fact, the Home Affairs Bureau also sent their bureau directors and undersecretary to come with us. And we also visited the laboratory used by the Japanese 731 Brigade. And we could see that, during that difficult time, many families were broken. And when the young people came out from that laboratory, there was that silence. We can understand that they were reflecting on themselves as to what happened. And in order to develop their positive values, well, they would have to be resilient to adversities, or else they would not be able to contribute to our nation, because in the course of their growth, they would inevitably come across difficulties and so on, and they would have to be resilient. They must not be overcome or overwhelmed by difficulties. They must not give up. So through virtuous education, we must develop positive values in these young people so that they would have the virtues, and then they would be able to develop a positive personality, so that they would have both the talents, the abilities, and also the commitment, and they would have global perspectives. They would also have positive values and attitude. They would love the country and love Hong Kong, and they would become our talents. So with these remarks, I support Mr. Benson Look's original motion, and I also urge members to support my amendment. Thank you. Ms. Jovi Chen. Thank you, Madam Deputy, I support the original motion by Mr. Benson Look. I'd like to move this amendment because the State President said in his address celebrating the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong's return that he would attach importance to youth development, and he further elaborate that youth development is also a strategic work, and therefore it shows the importance of this, and therefore I think it's only right that we should have this motion debate here, and therefore I support Mr. Benson Look's original motion. I have 3 points to make here. First, in bracket 1 of my amendment, I think we have to be more focused in youth work. We will have to attach importance to grassroots young people. We have to provide them with better support, because in terms of education, career pursuits, entrepreneurship, and home ownership, they need more help. Well, since I joined politics, I've been serving in many grassroots communities, so I've been helping many young people. Many young people simply do not want to lie low. In fact, there needs to be a chance. Well, they simply do not have a chance to make a living, not let alone moving up the social ladder. And in fact, they have been suppressed. Well, taking education as an example, while I was a Sam Shui Po district councillor, I was also providing counselling service to them, where they don't even have a desk to work on. And some young people would also have to work part-time in order to make ends meet. And sometimes they would say that they simply lost at the start line. And because they do not have the network, and therefore it would be very difficult for them to move up the social ladder or start a career. And therefore, we would have this saying that, in fact, they are at the very low rung of society and they would not be able to move up the social ladder. And therefore, we will have to make sure that we would be able to target the youth and provide them with the support that they need. And therefore, we will have to achieve this synergy effect so that everybody will be working hand in hand to give them what they need. And also, we will have to provide more pathways for them to move up the social ladder, and that should have to do with our national development, because the 14th five-year plan also supports Hong Kong in developing into the 8 major centers, and that would also have to do with youth development. Well, we would have to give them the direction. We would also have to provide them with special training and academic training, so that they would be receiving both training in the academic and also vocational arenas. So for the 8 centers that we would be developing, well, there is also this saying that we should develop ourselves into a East meets West Center for International Cultural Exchange, because we've been doing a lot of these, and we have violin teachers doing the performances and so on. So young people would like that, and therefore, if we were to develop ourselves into a East meets West Center for International Cultural Exchange, then many people will be able to pursue their career in that area, and they would feel a sense of happiness, and they would also have a sense of achievement. And the 4th point is about increasing their global perspective and broaden their horizon, and they would also have to understand our country better, and therefore we will have to nurture their sense on the rule of law and so on. And Mr. Kenneth Leung and Mr. Rock Chen have already mentioned those in their amendments, and therefore I think I'll just skip that here. Well, we have been saying that we will have to tell a good Hong Kong story, and the best agents to tell the Hong Kong story would be the young people who are born and bred here, and therefore we will have to tell them what is happening, so that we will have to give them equal opportunity of development. And we will be able to nurture talents who would be more committed and who would be willing to work hard to contribute to our country, so that we can work together to build a beautiful Hong Kong for all of us, so that we can make contribution to the great rejuvenation of our country. So I hope that you can support my amendment. These are my remarks.
民政及
Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. Benson Look for moving the motion, which shows that they care about young people in Hong Kong and their upward mobility. In fact, like members of the Council, the government deeply cares about and loves our young people. We endeavor to be their friend, their support, and their guide. As President Xi said in the 20th Party Congress report, a nation will only prosper when its young people thrive. Young people of today in China live in a remarkable time when there is a boundless stage to showcase their talent and a bright future to realize their dream. President Xi also said in his important speech on the 1st of July that we must guide our young people so they get a good understanding of the development landscape of our country and of the world. We must enhance their national pride and sense of being masters of their destiny, help them overcome difficulties in education, career, entrepreneurship, and housing to create more opportunities to shine. President Xi's two important speeches show that the future of our country, our race, and Hong Kong hinges on youth development. The Youth Development Commission, chaired by the Chief Secretary, was set up to enhance policy coordination, research, and discussion of issues close to the heart of young people. The daunting challenges Hong Kong faced in the past 5 years made us reflect upon the positioning and focus of our work. We will listen to youngsters. We will help them overcome difficulties in their study, employment, and housing, and will create more opportunities for them to shine. We must focus on cultivating their positive thinking and positive values and enhance their national pride, so they'll become responsible young people and work for our future. We're at the critical stage where Hong Kong becomes not just stable but prosperous. We can formulate better and more detailed plan of our youth work, set the stage for the next generation on which to build the future. Young people of Hong Kong are talented. Give them the right environment and room to grow, they will certainly flourish and become builders of the future. In order to take forward youth development work more effectively, this term of government reorganized the Home Affairs Bureau into the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau. The Bureau formulates youth policy and the Youth Development Blueprint to set policy objectives for healthy and diversified development of our young and to create upward mobility for them. The blueprint is the first major guiding document on youth development. It outlines the vision of youth development work of the government. It sets out the respective initiatives, actions, and indicators. It shows that the government's commitment on youth development. The government will lead the different quarters of our society as more attention is placed on youth development. We will help youngsters in different ways, including a sense of nationhood, national pride, awareness of rule of law, understanding of the development of our country and the world, help them overcome difficulties in different areas, enhance a sense of being masters of their future, holistic development, and improve their health mentally and physically. I'll listen to members before I give a concluding remark. Thank you.
Mr. Everett Leung, well, I speak in support of the original motion moved by Mr. Benson Law as well as those amendments moved by other members. We all know youth development is very important. If we read the speech given by President Xi and also the policy address of the CE, we'll understand how important this is. Young people have dreams, and people in different countries also have dreams for their country, be they in America or in China. If we ask Hong Kong young people, for the older generation, they may say that they would like to achieve their goals of owning a home, a spouse, and having a son and a car. But for the new generation, well, they like to travel. The preferred destination is Japan. They may think that even if I'd forgone such travel trips, I would not be able